Welcome back to part 3 of my 2-week adventure in Big Bend National Park, where we will start out by checking into the Forever Resort's Chisos Mountains Lodge so that I can get cleaned up after completing our 4-day backpacking adventure. So I'm checking into room 102 at the Chisos Mountains Lodge, and as you can tell, based on looking at the beds and what I've brought in, I slammed a lemonade because I was so thirsty. But as you can tell, I just now checked in, right? In fact, look, my hands are still fresh off the trails, dirty. This is one of the elements of wildlife that happened to somehow make it into my room. Check it out. Now, I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if I focused on it or anything because I'm looking at the side with the video screen. It's a little rank, so I'm going to move it outside right now, probably into a shaded area in case some animal wants to eat it. I wasn't expecting that, but I decided to add that to the compilation just for your viewing entertainment purposes. So, I don't know if you can see it. I'm still sweating. As you can tell, I'm in a different room. Even though there were no other rooms available, apparently there's stuff on backup just in case. So, thankfully, I've still got quite a view. Check this out. I've even got a balcony, which these balconies lock behind you, so you have to take your key. Check this out. So not a bad view. And it smells a lot different in here too. So to keep it consistent, I'm gonna go and take a shower so that I don't cause this room to smell any different. Plus, look at this bed. It's completely king size instead of 3 different smaller beds. So I'm pretty pleased. Hey everybody, it is Friday, May the 20th, and I want to tell you about a cover-up that's occurring at the Big Bend National Park. So take a ride with me and you can see it for yourself. guys are getting treated to a cover-up and a reveal in the same video. Now, what do I mean by there's a cover-up going on? The truth of the matter is, even on the Boquillas side of this national park, where if you've crossed over and seen the informational sign at Boquillas that has a photograph, there's a photograph from the past of Boquillas, and then there's also a photograph that shows the current town of Boquillas. I was commissioned without pay, but as an honorary recognized person, to take that picture, and my name was to be listed on the picture, like imprinted on the same picture, giving credit to me for taking that image. Now, when the sign was produced, it did not have my name on it whatsoever, and so I talked with the park superintendent, and I was told that basically that was an oversight, and a brass plaque was going to be made and affixed to the crossing, to the sign, to the informational sign at the Boquillas crossing. Just before you cross the river, you walk under a sign, you walk under a canopy of trees, and in that canopy of trees, there's a sign that tells a little bit about what you're about to experience. And then suddenly, this sign was again produced to commemorate the opening of that crossing and the opening of that checkpoint. And for whatever reason, again, my name was left off of it. Now, today itself, actually yesterday, I apologize, yesterday itself, because we're after midnight here, we're at 1:21 in the morning. It's 91 degrees on this side of the national park, the Big Bend National Park. It's 91 degrees. It just rained a couple of days ago throughout the park in different areas, and whether or not it rained on a 91 degree night of a mostly springtime, early summertime location, we would generally see reptiles all along this road, crossing it, hanging out on the side of it. We just had 2 bats fly overhead. Again, I don't know what this camera is picking up, but what I'm trying to do is talk about wellness and conservation, and how follow-through is very important. Now, when I was told that my name would be on the sign, it made me, gave me a thrill. I've hardly been published among my peers. We're about to pass through the tunnel that's right by the Boquillas area. I've hardly been recognized among my peers as a photographer, for an example. One time I was in a group of my peers where someone asked if I was also a photographer, because we had a photographer in our group that was hiking. The photographer immediately discounted what I did, or actually denied that I was a photographer, and said, no, this guy's just an IT person. And he didn't even say it like that, like just an IT person. He said he's an IT person with a little bit of respect. But at the same time, I had already left my IT career to show a story, to showcase a story about the diminishing, the wildlife, the decline of wildlife. And in a lot of ways, everything I'm talking about seems to be getting erased. And yesterday itself, I checked into a room up in the basin, which is where we're headed right now. This video is going to be hopefully a complete video of the drive from the Rio Grande Village to the basin itself, where I've got a room for the night. Earlier that same day, yesterday, I called the lodge after being at a remote campsite on the South Rim for several nights in a row, where I'd run out of juice, really. And I couldn't bear taking the heat and swatting all of the insects away all day long, all the way until the evening time when I got into my tent, which was my only refuge, respite, my only retreat from all of the insect activity. Thankfully, it wasn't biting insect activity, but anyway, I was able to get a room. I was told it was the last room available, and it was a cottage, one of the stone cottages, which, if any of you have ever stayed at the Big Bend National Park, there are stone cottages that were built by the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, way back when. And the cottages are fantastic. They're amazingly beautiful. And so I was fortunate to have that as an option. The only drawback is that it's pretty hot outside right now, and in those stone cottages, the only thing available is a ceiling fan. And of course, the beautiful amount of shade that those stone cottages happen to come with, as compared to staying in a tent in the middle of a forest that doesn't have the most gigantic trees of all of the possible places I could have stayed. The reason I stayed here, again, I'm talking about wellness and conservation, and there are, as you can see on this screen while you're watching, there are bugs that are flying into view, and possibly that you're able to see on the windshield itself. So there's an increase in bugs. But now where I'm at, it's 90 degrees, and in the past, after a rain of any sort, normally we would have frogs, we would have even lizards at night would hang out on the road. But most notably absent are the snakes that usually would hang out on the road during this time and many other times of the year. The temperatures are a little bit hot for certain things. They're still doable for most of the wildlife that's out here, because out here in Big Bend you have hardy wildlife, and that hardy wildlife is able to do to withstand all kinds of scenarios. So the reason I'm telling you about the hotel at the same time is that when I unlocked the door and walked into the cottage, I thought, that's funny, it smells in here almost worse than I do. Remember, what I said is I had been hiking in the woods for several days. And sure enough, in the room, while I was actually on a phone conversation, because there's now a phone signal in the basin, while I was participating in my telephone conversation, I pointed out, oh wow, there's a dead mouse on the windowsill. And so I basically ended my conversation and I looked around the room, and in addition to the dead mouse were droppings from the rodent, apparently all over the room, all over the windowsill, all the windowsills, not just the windowsill it was on. There were droppings on the windowsills, on the table. There were droppings on the little metal tray that goes above the sink in the cottage 102, I believe. There was a little mouse on the road. I hope you got to see that. And speaking of mice, you know, the synchronicity of what I'm telling you right now is going to be hopefully very poignant, hopefully very revealing. But anyway, so there was a mouse, there were mouse droppings, there was a spent coffee filter in the coffee making machine. which to me, none of those were major issues. Remember, I was just as dirty as could be coming from a camping experience. And at the same time, I decided to call the front desk to tell them about this because, you know, I mean, I really just wanted to take a shower, but if there was anything better that could happen, I would totally have been appreciative of it. And I explained that. And so the person at the front desk was grateful to hear what I was saying, you know, and that they had the opportunity to resolve the matter. And they immediately sent over a porter who confirmed what I was seeing, reported back to the front desk, and advised me, after talking with their representative who was on staff, they advised me that I would be able to have a different room. And they gave me a choice of 2 rooms, 1 room with 2 beds and 1 room with 1 bed. Now, I'm here alone, which you've probably seen earlier in this series, so I basically opted for the room with 1 bed. It's a gigantic bed, and I was already in a cramped sleeping circumstance, so I'm looking forward to getting a good amount of sleep without having to feel crunched up. And again, it's 1:30 in the morning on a Friday, so I'll be able to. There's a jackrabbit. Did you see it? Did you guys see it? Anyway, I'm going to be going to sleep, but this is a work day for me. And my work day in a place like this, to showcase wellness and conservation and talk about the decline in wildlife, there was a bat, to talk about the decline in wildlife requires participating at hours when most people are just asleep. So I'm going through a set of turns right here where I found one of the coolest snakes in the past. After a rainfall, it's just by coincidence, you know, these snakes can be anywhere, but I'm just mentioning basically footnotes, and the footnotes are such that I'm telling you there normally would be so many mice crossing the road that you would also at this time of year see nighthawks, owls, and I'm not saying we won't see that. We might see some of those things on this very drive itself. In fact, on the way to the end of this road, I saw 2 coyotes. I normally don't see the coyotes traveling together, although we know that they operate in packs, especially when times are lean. And the coyotes appeared to be traveling this roadway, so we may actually see those again. Anyway, in this story where I got the option to move to another room, I was placed in a set of the buildings that has my own pictures in them. In the past, this hotel, the Chisos Mountains Lodge, has talked with me about putting pictures into the rooms, and they had also talked with me about selling those same pictures in their souvenir shop, in their gift shop. I attempted to complete that deal of business with them back in the past, and what happened was we came up with a way that this would be doable. And the way that would happen is they would put my pictures in the room, and the pictures would have at the bottom the credit that says where these pictures came from, and also potentially how to reach the person that made them, so that basically at some point it could turn into something where I was receiving credit. Sort of like the sign at Boquias, though, instead of ever having my name at the bottom right now, the pictures were rematted so that none of that relevant contact information is at the bottom. So I've pretty much been erased from my work that I've put into this place. And by being erased, I'm saying, you know, maybe that brass plaque is still on the informative sign, maybe it's not. But I was essentially erased from having been acknowledged for doing the work that I did. And I was erased when I was hiking with my hiking buddies, who said where one guy, there was a mouse, we didn't hit it, it went right in the middle of this vehicle. I don't know if you could see it. Where my hiking partners, where my direct connection to that hiking team discredited me as a photographer, I was erased as a photographer from that group as well. So what is it that I do? I've been asked many times in these locations, in all locations, by many people who have conservation and wellness discussions with me, well, what do you do now? Well, you're seeing it. Right now it's 134, it's 88 degrees where I'm at, and I'm looking for the activity that we know should be here right now. During these past years, some of the things have been kind of absent. You know, the lubber grasshoppers are not as abundant. The tarantulas, which I saw one of on this drive so far, maybe we'll see another one, are not as abundant. The nighthawks are not as abundant. Most of the spiders are not as abundant. And I'll try to, here, look, a coyote. Did you see it? Let me try to show it to you. Now, this isn't something that's standard park procedures. Nope, it's gone. It's gone. I hope you saw it in the frame. Normally, you shouldn't do anything like what I just did because you're basically obstructing the roadway. But I've been watching, and there are no headlights behind me. There was nobody in any car that was active from the side of the park that we were coming from, and obviously there was no one in front of us, although someone could have been coming from over the hill. But from this park, the beauty of how desolate it is that we can see headlights from quite a distance away. So that coyote might have been one of the two that I saw earlier. It's possible, because I saw the coyotes kind of close to the Boquillas area, so it's possible that was one of the two. We'll find out at some point. What I'm telling you right now in terms of what I'm doing at 1:36 in the morning when it's 88 degrees outside is that I'm giving you statistics and numbers, and I'm oftentimes giving the date now of when this was recorded so that we can have a way to compare, well, what happened last year at this time? What happened the year before at this time? Some people won't be able to put together the big picture without acknowledging the way that it was in the past. Yesterday, I spoke with someone on the balcony, the front porch area of the hotel room that I got switched into, and he has been traveling here to Big Bend for 30 years. He also noticed within the past 4 years or so the decline in the javelina, and he also acknowledged what I remember starting when I started to come to this park in 1993, which is that there used to be javelina peccaries, colored peccaries. There used to be javelina playing and jostling and doing all the things that javelina do right in the basin. And the reason they were doing it in the basin is because we had a bunch of cactus that had cactus fruit, and also because we had the numbers, the volume of all of the rest of the foods that supported those creatures. Now, in today's world, 2022, we have serious issues to consider, and until we can acknowledge that there's an issue to begin with, we may not ever start attempting to resolve the solution. Yesterday, I sat with some interpretive rangers. Both of them advised me that I needed to read a book and learn about the marketing aspects of how to communicate these messages with other people. So, what I want to do is forego all of the additional time to be wasted. I could go and get a degree. I could go and read all the books. And none of that would allow me to do what I'm doing right now, which is actually showing you real time, observing and showing you real time what we are no longer seeing. In any other year in the past, at least 4 years ago, I would be able to bring you out to this park, even 3 years ago, and on a night like today, late spring, I would be able to stop every so often showing you the snakes, the lizards, even the wolf spiders are visible from my car. I can pick them out. In fact, if we see one, I'll slow down and I'll remove this phone from the mount and just carry it out to show you that I'm not making this stuff up. I can see, again, that we're hitting some insects. I feel like it's tragic that I'm contributing to the loss of these ecosystems, and I have been since the start. Many of us have been doing the same thing. Many of us just don't want to acknowledge it. But we have to acknowledge what's happening in order to recognize that there's any variable that we can change to begin with. So, as I acknowledge that I'm eliminating some of the insects from this process, I'm also contributing the factors that say, look, maybe without someone showing someone else what has happened, we won't be able to get this message across. And since I was going to the park since 1993, I had a camcorder. And in that series of videos that I made from back then, and ever since, with any time that I went back to the park with some kind of electronic capturing capability, I've documented these things, and I have stockpiles of digital images and video formats that I can hopefully transfer and show, so that we can all recognize together that, hey, this is true. Something has changed. Why is it that this guy, Ray, had his name not even included on the informative sign, and why is his name being removed from the hotels, the pictures that are in the hotel? Here's something. Oh, it's just one of those little center stripe markers that's for some reason mounted in the actual lane. I hope that you saw it. Normally, what I expect to see when I see reflective things right in my own lane is a nighthawk. There was no nighthawk there. There has been no nighthawk since this drive has started. There has been not yet an owl, I believe, although I think I saw one flying off earlier. It was either early at the beginning of this talk or right before I started recording. And anyway, we're driving the entire stretch from the Rio Grande Village at the speed limit. Normally I wouldn't even be going the speed limit because of how many animals are out at night. And we're going with full awareness. It's now 84 degrees. It's 1:42 in the morning. We're going with full awareness of what the conditions are, what is in front of us. If there are vehicles that have entered the roadway behind us, the rear view mirror will show me a reflection, will show me a set of lights if there's a car behind me, unless they're driving with their lights off, which today, before the moon came up, there's no light. And so most people will not be driving without their lights on right now. When the moon is full, you practically can drive by moonlight alone. And I'm sure most people wouldn't do that in this park. But it's quite an experience just to enjoy for a short stretch of road, just to see what it's like. And here we are on a Friday where I'll be working through the weekend and hopefully next week. And I was told yesterday that there was only one room available for me, but as soon as this mouse situation happened, well, there apparently was at least 2 backup rooms where I could be placed. I have a reservation for tonight and then 2 nights from now, which now is 1 night from now. So there's a gap. There's a gap in my stay. And I asked the person at the front desk if they could arrange it so that I could just stay in the same room for 3 nights. Because that would help immensely. To move gear all around between rooms and not know if you're going to stay in a room, for an example, throws off the entire day. I can't go and hike anything tomorrow easily if it's going to be of any distance, because checkout time would require that I'm somewhere where I can put all my stuff in and back into my car. Now, thankfully, I don't have a lot of stuff with me. This was supposed to be a camping exclusive, but for 2 of the days while I was up in the mountains, I had some either heat-related issues or some issues where I wasn't eating the right foods for the conditions, because I was practically fasting, or a combination of both. But the feeling that I had was such that I needed to get down and rehydrate with something other than just lukewarm water, mixed nuts, and tangerines. And so yesterday when I walked down, as tired as could be, the first thing I did was go to the store and enjoy a couple of sweet drinks, because that was what was calling to me. I was craving it. And so I enjoyed my drinks, and I drove off towards the town of Studi Butte, where there's a store called the Cottonwood Store, and they have some of the best produce in the area. A lot of people talk about they don't shop there because prices are so high. It takes a lot of effort to get great produce into an area like this. So they're charging the price for it. It's commensurate. It's understandable. I'm willing to pay that price for the work that someone is doing. And on the way, I had a signal, so I thought, let me call the lodge where I've brought so many people in the past, and where I've been lucky to have a room when I needed it. Let me call the lodge and see if maybe they have something for me, because that'll allow me to hang on just a few more days, or at least one day. The weather is gonna change. There's something. Oh, it's a dead rabbit. There's a dead rabbit. I passed 2 dead rabbits on the way out here. They were already dead. I haven't hit any rabbits. That's not to say in the past that I haven't hit any rabbits in my past trips. I get pretty emotional when I do, because I'm watching the road. Let's call it like a hawk. I'm in a trail hawk. I'm watching the road like a trail hawk. So I called the lodge. They had a room. They told me they just had this one room available. It was one of their most expensive rooms. And the moment I walked in and smelled the death in the air, which was a little bit more ripe than I smelled, I knew something was off. I just didn't know I was going to actually get to move into a different room. I was told there was only one room available. So I'm coming up on the Panther Junction area, and I believe they have radar there, which is what that chime was. So I'm slowing down to meet the speed limit requirements. I'm going to move over even though it's a double solid, because this truck is right here. It's 30 now, so I'm slowing down even more. There was a jackrabbit right by that sign. So we're seeing some of the beginning, or the continued signs of life for the hardiest of the hardy. All of these animals consume something and or are consumed by something. And as they decline, as their populations decline, so too does every other component that requires that source, that resource. Resources are an interesting thing. I feel like I am an unpaid resource showcasing the things that I'm seeing right now on this platform, which is, of course, not mainstream media. And because it's not mainstream media, I've got many friends and family members who will not share this content. who couldn't care less about this content, even though it's my livelihood. It's our livelihood. It's all of our livelihood. If wildlife is struggling to make ends meet, so to speak, we're not that far removed on this chain. We are a part of this chain. Whether we understand it or not, we're a part of this chain. So here we are, already past Panther Junction. Here we are, having not stopped a single time for any snakes that have emerged. The moon is rising over my shoulder. Hopefully that reddish glow from it just barely peeking over the mountains will show up. I used to stop for stuff like that to record it and show it to people. But what for? Who's paying attention? Who's paying attention to this, for an example? If you're paying attention, then some of what you've seen here will resonate, and you'll easily be willing to share these bits of insight, these cover-ups, so that they're no longer a cover-up. The only way we can acknowledge and process that there's a problem is sometimes to see that there's a problem to begin with. If we cannot see that there's a problem, there's no action that's going to be taken, and people will tell other people, read a book, go to this class, join this, join that, join the other. I was invited by a Sierra Club outing to provide knowledge, the knowledge that I have about wildlife. Now, granted, this was sometime in the past, right before COVID. At this outing were big pallets of plastic bottles of water being handed out as part of the solution to entertain the people who were out there. I was observant of who was in that group, and it did not include people like myself. And by that, what I mean is in my age category, even in my any of my demographic, I was not represented in that group. But thankfully, because someone recognized me, the work that I've done, and gave me the credit that was due, I was invited to participate with that outing, something I normally would not have been able to afford just off the bat. When I left the corporate arena, I basically I used all of my life savings to do what I'm doing right now, even. So to be sold on the most expensive room when I didn't hardly have the cash for the least expensive room, it's almost like a challenge, a direct challenge. Do I continue doing what I'm doing? Here, let me show you this. You've got to see this. Do I continue doing what I'm doing? There's the moon. Look at those clouds. See? Trying to put it back at the one-time magnification versus anything that's zoomed in. I want this video to be consistent and for you to recognize it's uncut. So this is the work I'm doing. I was here, I documented the lunar eclipse using my spotting scope. If I had my friend with me who has the tripod that actually tracks whatever you're shooting, I would have had a continuous shot. Continuous shot without having to keep repositioning the scope. I don't have all of these devices. I don't even have the camera gear that I used to have I sold it all. I had to sell it so that I can continue to do what I'm doing right now. So in a way, I'm working with one of my arms tied behind my back. I'm working without the same equipment that other people are working with. Most of those people who are working with high-end camera gear, who are recognized and paid, they want to protect their livelihood. And to protect your livelihood, you have to put on a happy smiley face and say, well, everything's okay, you know, and our pensions are going to be fine, and our Social Security is great. What about for everyone else? What are the things like for everyone else out there in the world? Is there even going to be a Social Security option for someone like myself? Or the generation, I'm going to slow down and try to show you this. See that moon over the mountain? How cool, huh? Is there even going to be Social Security? Do we care about Social Security, or do we care about when something is hurt, when something is obviously in need of help? If we can see that something is struggling, would we move our heart? Would our heart move? Or are our hearts like stone right now? Are we so stiff-necked that we can't even turn our head to look at the fact that some of these things are true, are truths, are true? Or do we just continue to amble about like as if, well, we might as well just keep doing what we're doing because someone's going to fix it? We have a lot of people in high places that are studying these things, that are working out solutions. What is it going to take for someone to recognize that as it's 82 degrees in this part of the ecosystem, and as it was 90 whatever in the other part of the ecosystem, what is it going to take for us to recognize that we're already past the point of saying, well, it's not the right time of year? What is it going to take for someone to go, yeah, you're right, during this particular time of year, we should have seen something on this drive. This was a long drive. So far, it's been over a half hour, 40 minutes, I think. The way this device is set up, I can't quite see all the details on this screen. And in fact, I wouldn't want to. It would be a distraction. What I'm looking for is any movement. Check this out. What I'm looking for is any movement. Those are my automatic headlights. If a car was coming from the oncoming direction, these lights would dim themselves. You probably have seen I've got spotlights mounted to the car. They're for off-road use only, but let me show you what they look like. That's with the clear screen protectors on. When I take them off, the beam is more focused. It allows me to more safely navigate certain roadways where I do not want to crush or miss any of the wildlife that might happen to be an obstacle. You know, I don't want to hurt any of the animals that are here. Not even the bugs that I'm inadvertently taking out. That's the cost of this story. This story is including all of the details that I'm sharing with you so that you can understand how frustrating it is for a nobody like myself who can't even share this story with his own fathers all that easily. Yesterday I met several people who I did share the story with, but the father, one of the fathers advised me that I needed to read a book so that I could figure out the marketing aspect of what it is that would allow people to make better decisions. We don't need any more books printed right now, actually. What we need is actual work being done. It's great to read stories all day long and be fascinated with all of the knowledge. That's almost like faith. You know, you have all this knowledge, faith that there's some power that unites us all, whether it's just the basic components of the elements that we're made of. But without any action, faith is meaningless. Without any action paired to all the knowledge, and in fact, with a stop of knowledge, and the stop being our fathers, we have a complete failure of this chain that used to be so beautifully interlinked. It was interlinked in a way where someone could find a photographer who was local and share the opportunity for that local photographer to help the rooms in an environment like this to have pictures of the native flora and fauna. That's what I did. In fact, the reason that my pictures are in this lodge are because when I looked up some of the flowers that were photographed in this hotel, they were from other states. Nothing in the pictures hardly had anything to do with this park itself. It was just more like Texas themed or random pictures of flowers that were from other states. Whatever was pretty. Have you guys ever experienced something like that where you just kind of go after whatever's pretty? It might not be that intelligent. And I don't mean to demean anyone who might misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm just talking in generalities. My name has been covered up from the participation in this national park that I consider it my second home, because it's an integral part of my adolescence. It's an integral part of my adulthood. It's an integral part of my health. Isn't nature part of your health? Is nature nurture for you? I can't tell you how many times I've seen bears crossing the road here at night. Hopefully, it's 2 in the morning right now. It's 77 degrees outside. Hopefully we see something on this last stretch. I've seen snakes all the way up to the basin parking lot for the restaurant. I've seen bears, I've seen mountain lions on this stretch of road, especially at night. And in fact, this corner we're coming up on, used to be one of my favorite, easiest locations to see the ringtail. We have ringtails here. They were so curious. They would come and look at all the cars that were passing at this hour. Who in their right mind would drive these roads at night? Who in their right mind would get out of the car and subject themselves to all the mosquitoes? I did. I paid blood, sweat, and tears for my education. I once had a manager / director of the area that I used to work at come and visit this park. It was after inspiration from me, probably. They even bought my pictures. I don't even know if they paid that much for them. I think they just paid the price that basically it cost me to get them printed. They even bought my pictures and reminded me that they had my pictures the last time they were coming to this park. The first time they were coming to this park, I should say. I asked if we could meet up. They didn't want to meet with me because I was talking about a decline in all of these valuable, integral pieces of this ecosystem. And nobody wants to really hear that. Again, you know, it's great if we put our heads in the sand and don't want to acknowledge all the paper on the trails, all the plastic caps on the trails. It's great if we want to acknowledge, don't want to acknowledge any of those things, but just because we don't acknowledge them doesn't mean that it's not happening. Are there pay discrepancies? Does one gender get paid typically more than the other gender for the same kind of work? Are there discrepancies in who is recognized as qualified to provide any kind of insight to some kind of a field of study? And at what point does that knowledge stop getting shared? Is it when our fathers don't hear the sons anymore? Again, this is generalities. It could be mothers and daughters, whatever. Is it when we want to rely on past books and money to make decisions? Do you make your decisions with money alone? It's going to be a lonely lifestyle. I'm an only child. I'm absolutely perfect living a lonely lifestyle. I'm here at 2:05 in the morning, 78 degrees, about to go to sleep for maybe 5 hours because I need to get up at a certain point in time to talk with the GM about whether they can go out of their way. Look at this, look at the parking lot. Does this look like I cannot stay in the same room for 3 nights? Look at how difficult it is for me to just do my job. In some cases, I might consider myself the Michael Jordan of what I do. Everyone needs to get out of the way. Someone needs to give me the ball, and everyone needs to get out of the way. There used to be foxes in this parking lot always at night. They hang out where the people are because that's where the rodents are. If you don't believe it, in the end of this clip, I'm going to show you a picture of the rodent that was in my room. The rodents in the room are there because of us people. Us people are putting into these situations the food required to sustain those lives. This is the parking lot. That's the building where I'm staying. That's the building where I'm going to show you where I've been covered up. So hang tight, please stick with me to the end of this video. Hey everybody, welcome back. Once again, I'm in a different room. This time, I'm in the room for the next 2 nights, which basically will be until the temperatures cool off. So I got really fortunate to be able to check this out. Now it's a little bit different of a view than I had last night, but I've never actually had a room that looks out in this direction where it appears to be shaded and quite a haven for wildlife traffic. So I see a wind scorpion sulfugid. I don't know exactly how it's spelled or how to say it. This is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. I'm actually kind of intimidated to do what I'm about to do, but for size reference, I can't think of another way to do this more easily. I'm going to show it to you right now. I'm going to get my flashlight so I can make sure nothing else came out onto the road to surprise me. Got a 9-volt battery. Let's see, what else can I put out there for reference that I can... That's about it. I think that tells the story, doesn't it? Look how big that beautiful beast is. Whoa. That's scary and intimidating looking. Is that creepy or what? Whoa, look. I don't know if that'll show up on the video, but that was one of the biggest, brightest meteorites that I've seen. I hope it shows up. There were a lot of other lights going on, so it might not have shown up in this video. But I'm totally wishing upon a star.